Hello everyone, it's James from Teresa's Sound World. Now, I got cut off on my last video. It's just the limitations of my iPhone. So this is essentially part 2 of my review of D.O.A. A Rite of Passage, the punk documentary from 1981. Now, I was talking about GenerationX, the band that were famous for having Billy Idol as their singer, and Billy Idol went on to become a megastar in the 1980s. Now, the point I was making was that this band look obviously of the past by today's standards, but they very much look more like an 80s band than a 70s one. There's also bands like Sham 69 who start to look a bit more ahead of their time. There's less flares and that kind of thing going on, shorter hair. And bands like the Dead Boys from the US were looking more like New Romantics, you know, a few years ahead of that. And the Sex Pistols, although they're, you know, they've got the Vivienne Westwood type designs on them and very much almost like punk caricatures more than the other bands, they still look ahead of their time. Then moving on from that, just to say, with alternative culture as well, whenever there's a flurry of activity, be it artists, musicians, whatever, when you actually look at the individuals involved, they always seem miles ahead of their time. It's like I was watching a video of the Doors the other day, and they obviously look very 60s and everything, but compared with the interviewer and the audience they were playing to, who were all in suits with short hair, and the Doors are looking more kind of way out, they almost looked further along in time. Also, like with the grunge movement in the late 80s and early 90s, bands like Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Mudhoney, those kind of bands, they obviously look dated by today's standards and of their time, but if you compare them with the average person in the street at that time, they were way ahead of it. I was watching some UK TV the other day from the early 90s, and a lot of normal people just look like they're from the 80s. All the blokes have got mullets long at the back, spiky on top. A lot of the women got bubble perms, and then you had bands like Nirvana looking a lot more kind of pushed on into the future. And also bands in the mid-90s like the British indie band Oasis, they were very stylistic during the Britpop days, and they were miles ahead of other people in terms of style. But anyway, I'm digressing a little. Moving on to the actual performance of the Sex Pistols then. It's their very final kind of shows in their original incarnation, and it's got the famous line in the very last show that they did, "Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?" And it's sort of on a par with something you might watch in the film of Woodstock, or, you know, Hendrix burning his guitar, that kind of thing. You know, it's one of those sort of historical moments. And I know not a lot of people aren't too keen on the idea of Sid Vicious as well, you know, because of his sort of abilities on the bass, or you know, limitations, shall we say. But to be honest, I mean, that's not what punk's about. And also, I just see him as, you know, whereas people see him as a daft icon or whatever, I just see him as part of history as well. And when you see him on stage, you know, pogoing around, it's absolutely amazing, you know, to watch, you know, watch them all together as a unit. And then you've got, sticking with Sid, you've got interviews with Sid and Nancy, and, you know, the interviewer wasn't to know that these were some of the very last interviews that would be captured of that pair, Sid with obviously his girlfriend Nancy Spaulding. And it's really quite sad because they're in a right state, and Sid is obviously, you know, sort of strung out and not well, and into drugs, and falling asleep during the interview and getting very forgetful and burnt out. And yeah, it is sad because within a year they both were gone, they were both dead, you know, and it's actually really sad. And that's acknowledged at the end of the film, you know, in a very sort of subtle and respectful way. So that's in there too. And then, on a bit of a lighter note, there's a band called Terry and the Idiots, and Terry and the Idiots are fronted by a guy called Terry Sylvester, who's just a working class lad from London, and we just follow him around a bit. You know, he's got an abortive gig that goes down very badly, and actually I did a blog about that on my recent Punk Day, and that will be one of the links in the text of this post, but I'll go into that in a minute. But yeah, we follow him around, and he talks about punk, about society. You see nice shots of him walking through the tenement blocks. Well, I don't, they're very nice actually, it's pretty horrible and grim, but you see him down a pub as well. It's all little snapshots of the time when he does this gig. You see it's not just the performance and everything, you see the crowd, all the fashions of the normal sort of mainstream people, you know, what a 70s pub used to look like, people smoking, that kind of thing, the decor, you know, it's like a nice little snapshot of the past. But anyway, with Terry and the Idiots, they are a bit of a joke, but he is an endearing character. And yeah, click on the link to see my vlog about that section of this film, because that's quite a nice thing that I did. But anyway, yeah, this film, highly recommend you watch it. You can get it on Blu-ray and DVD as a set quite cheaply, but also I did find it on YouTube, so click on the link in the menu below that I've created. There's a link to the film. There's also a link to, like I was saying, my Terry and the Idiots vlog, which in itself has a link to then the footage of Terry and the Idiots. We've also got performances by Sham 69, the Sex Pistols, XRaySpex, GenerationX. I've put those as little links as well. And of course the bed interview of Sid and Nancy. So check those out. Apologies for this split into two parts, and apologies for having to let my dog out in part one, but she's been barking all night. I think there's some weird things going on in the forest, so I can't really reshoot a lot of stuff. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed these vlogs, and I hope you enjoy the clips. Maybe give the film a go as well. It is on YouTube. It's shot on the sort of video cameras that the guy was carrying around, and it gives this really nice sort of retro hue to it, this feel. It's wonderful, you know, wonderful little snapshot of that era. And hopefully at some point I'll be doing another movie film review. I was thinking of doing 1991, the Sonic Youth in 1991, the year punk broke, and we'll just see how this goes, and I might do that one soon. But anyway, hope you enjoy the vlogs, and hope you enjoy the film or the clips, and thanks for watching. Cheers for now.